Hello everyone and welcome to my Snippet Manager tutorial. Now in this video, or possibly a couple of videos depending on how long this ends up taking, we will be creating a Snippet Manager program. And just to kind of demonstrate at first, let's go ahead and go to Google, and this is what I've made. I've made a Snippet Manager where I can type in these two characters and then type in maybe a shortcut like site and then hit space and it will fill it with my website. Or I can do GH for GitHub and it'll fill it with my GitHub. Or I could do LN for LinkedIn and it fills it like that. And it doesn't just have to be in Google. It could be right here. I could fill my, I could fill my GitHub right here and then just hit enter. And then, you know, that's like a kind of like a bookmark, but that's not the only place it's used. It's also used on the command line. Whenever I need a push to Git, again, I just do my GH, and then I normally do my token, which you're not going to get to see, unfortunately, because, yeah, I have a private GitHub token for pushing up, stuff like that. So basically, it just lets me save little snippets of text and allows me to shortcut them anywhere on my computer. And that's the great part. Because if you've been programming for a while, which you will actually need to know a bit of programming experience for this tutorial series, you will know that VS Code and other programming IDEs have snippets that let you autofill a lot of your code. And I wanted to bring that to the regular user. Now, quickly to preface, this tutorial is going to be quite different from my other tutorials that I've been making, like my CSS mini-series tutorials, my Introduction to Web Dev, and my JavaScript for Beginners, in the sense that in order to actually kind of follow this tutorial, you're going to need to know more than what I've taught on my channel so far. This one is sort of like an isolated tutorial because it requires a prerequisite of at least beginner Node JavaScript knowledge and at least beginner command line knowledge. So if you don't know either of those, I highly recommend you check out some tutorial series. Just look up like beginner NodeJS, NodeJS tutorial, and then just introduction to Linux command line or introduction to Windows command line with Node.js or something like that. And you will surely find tutorials. And once you finish those, then you can actually follow along here. This is going to be, again, more of an application-based tutorial where I'm showing you how to build an application that I built rather than teaching you any specific skills. So we're going to go ahead and get started by initializing our NPM project by doing an npm init. And then let's just call this Snippet Manager. And then let's autofill it with most of the default stuff. And I'm just going to add the author because I know it complains when you don't. Okay. So now we have an npm kind of package initialized. And let's create a index.js. Or you can, of course, use the VS Code interface to do that. And we're going to go ahead and have this here. Now, the way I actually allowed myself to do this, to kind of, one, read keystrokes, and two, or actually, no, that's a good way to break it down. So let's go ahead and create a README, and you don't have to do this, but this is just kind of as a demonstration. So, of course, to create our snippet manager, the best thing to do when we are programming, at least something simpler on the simpler side like this, we don't have to do a full-blown like requirements document and technical documentation, but the great steps to do are, one, we want to kind of come up with a conceptual design. And then two, we want to come up with questions in a sense. Like we need to at least think about what we do not know. And then of course, three would be research those questions, research the answers to those questions, technical questions generally. And then, hold on. And then I guess the next step, like in a simple project like this, would be to design or to build at that point, build and test. And you need to constantly be testing as you build, because this is a fairly small project overall. But we will have to basically look up what we don't know. We will have to, come up with a list of questions of the things we don't know how to do. We want to come up with research, and then we want to build and test. So let's go ahead and start with that conceptual design. Let's come up with a list of things that we need to do. So I guess one thing that we're going to need is, if you think, how do we get this to happen? How do we get it so that boom, I type in my Q, I type in my keyword, and then I hit space in order to autofill. Well, we need to be able to do two things. One, we need to be able to read keystrokes, which, of course, could raise some concerns with keyloggers and stuff. So yeah, we need to read keystrokes at least either securely or easily to detect by antivirus, which is exactly how I do it here. I make it so that it's easily to detect by an antivirus. If anything happens to be able to hijack the program, the library I'm using, it warns you right in the README. It says this is extremely easy to detect by an antivirus, so you try to make any keylogger or something, it'll get shut down immediately. So that's what we want. And then, of course, we need to also be able to enter keystrokes. And I don't know why that's a different color. Whatever. So yeah, we also need to be able to enter keystrokes into our computer. So like, of course, typing in all that. So that's the basic gist. And then, of course, read keystrokes either securely or easily to detect, and then do some magic processing to figure out which keyword you were doing, and then enter in the keystrokes, of course. And of course, magic processing means do some cool code processing or something. We were going to be, most of our code will be focusing on this, is actually processing what comes in and figuring out what to type back out. So yeah, that's the overall conceptual design, the list of steps. It's a very simple program, which is why I'm not going too deep into the kind of planning phase. We're going to be spending most of our time building this. And then, of course, some questions you might have right off the bat are, how do we read keystrokes? And then, of course, how do we enter keystrokes? And those are like the main two. And of course, another question, the average beginner, especially if you're coming from a beginner background, you might say, how do we match input keystrokes or input phrase with output snippet? And we actually use an optimal data structure called a try to do this. That lets us do it very quickly, as opposed to the intuitive solution, which would be brute forcing. So let's go ahead and start with this first question. How do we read keystrokes? So the way we do our research is we literally say, how do you read keystrokes in JavaScript? And this is literally what I did to build my program. How to take keyboard input in JavaScript. Nope. Okay, that's regular input. I know that, again, how would you know that? As soon as you see document and then you see add event listener key down, alert, this is already working in a web environment, while Node.js is working in a server environment. You never see this in Node.js ever, because the document is the website, and we're not going to touch the document. So okay, I just noticed my question is probably not specific enough. So how do you read keystrokes in Node JavaScript or Node.js? Okay, read keystrokes from stdin. Okay, that is a Windows specific. Okay, so this is actually, this might even work, but we're not using this in this example. We're using a library that basically allows us to easily manage our input. So okay, there's another library. So yeah, honestly, if I took a deeper look into all these libraries, one of these might have worked. In fact, most of them might have worked for what we need to do. But just by pure luck, I happened to find a different library, which was called IOHook. And see, it probably came from this one, not on web browser, Node.js capture keyboard press, and boom. I looked at right here, you try to use the IOHook module, and this is what I used for my program. And I'm pretty sure the reason why it doesn't show up anywhere else is because it's kind of new, published 13 days ago. So it's great to use. Let's go ahead and install it. Again, I'm assuming you have a basic understanding of Node.js and know what this command does and what all the commands do, really. All the basic commands, at least, like npm init and npm i/npm install. Those are both the same thing. And then let's go ahead and just wait for that. So great, that is our first question answered. And in this video, actually, I just realized this is most certainly going to run over my time limit. So what we're going to do is we're going to spend this whole video just doing some conceptual design and going over it's called the SDLC. At least this is a stripped down version, the software development lifecycle. And this is probably the best way you can approach programming, as opposed to what I call the beginner method, which is what I've done for who knows how long, which is literally you start coding and you look things up as you go. And as much as that sounds appealing, it's great for learning as a beginner, but it is slow. It is really slow. Like, if you use the beginner method, you could end up taking a week on something that if you planned out, you could do in 2 days, basically. Because the first step always is come up with all the questions you might have during this, instead of just waiting for them to come and then doing research and then waiting for them to come and doing research. This is a good way to kind of figure it out. And even better is if you store this knowledge on some sort of document, you don't have to remember it all. Like, I don't memorize everything. I literally have a Google Doc. In fact, let me see where it is. You know what? I'll pull it up sometime else. But I have a Google Doc with literally like 30 or 40 different links to tutorials and resources that I don't memorize how to use. So yeah, we're gonna, again, spend this whole video going through the first step of the SDLC, which is the kind of coming up with questions and designing some level of requirements, aka just kind of understanding what we need to do and understanding the answer to all these questions. So yeah. So how do we do cool code processing? Well, like I said, I just from previous knowledge of like algorithms and data structures, since I'm learning, how to become I'm studying for coding interviews. Some people say they're useless, but I think one of the most useful things that comes out of studying for coding interviews is learning what a try is, because I use this all the time in just my normal programming, because this is used for word matching, which is exactly what we're doing. Notice we type in, let's type in GitHub. Well, if we want to match that to our code snippet, well, we need to, one, match this word to the snippet. So if you look up a try, it's this, and it's this complex data structure. It's a tree, basically, that starts with a blank, and then in order to match a word, you say T, like if your first character is T, you travel T, and then E, and then A, and then you match T. Boom. T-E-D, TED, T-O, 2, T-A, or A is just A, and then I-N, in. Like, you basically make it so that the brute force solution to solving this is, imagine we have GitHub in, and then we have this, we have this, we have GH, we have blah, 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 we have this, we have this, and let's say we literally had this like 100 times over. In order to match GitHub, the average programmer or the beginner programmer might think, hey, why don't we just say, is this GitHub? 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 And that's called the brute force solution, and it is very slow when your word list gets really big. And my word list is 50 entries right now, but it's just going to keep growing as I come up with more and more kind of keyboard shortcuts that I would find useful. It's going to keep on growing to 100 words, 100 entries, to maybe 200 entries at some point. And the point is if I have to loop through 200 entries and check each one every single time, I'm going to actually get noticeable delay. Like, it's going to take me a full 1 to 3 seconds in order for this to work. But if I just use my try method, it's instant, like, for it to find the replacement. So yeah, it basically makes the program more efficient and more fast. So yeah, I would recommend doing some research into tries and what they're used for. Let's just go to YouTube, and let's see. Let's search for try. Right here, HackerRank tries. This is an amazing resource. I actually learned tries through this just by HackerRank. It's 4 years old. It never gets old, though. It's always going to be useful. So yeah, this YouTube video, I'll probably link in the description. Let me actually just go ahead and plop that in here so I don't forget. Yeah, we'll just create a resources, and then I'll say HackerRank try. Okay, so yeah, I'll plop that into the description when the time comes, and I recommend you check out this to kind of figure out the how do you do some cool code processing to match input to output, basically. And then the third step is to enter keystrokes. So we're going to look up Node.js how to control keyboard, basically. And Robot.js is a popular, it's commonly recommended. It's not that bad. I remember I passed on it for some reason because it had some functionality that I was missing that I needed. This Node key sender is a couple years old, so I'm like, meh, I tend to stay away from really old packages. Is it possible to simulate keyboard mouse event in Node.js? Robot.js recommended. So again, you can probably use Robot.js. I ended up using I think actually I don't even know why. I think I ended up using a Windows specific just because I'm on Windows, and it was called it's called nut-js, which let me find it. Let me just find the Stack Overflow entry that I found. It was right here, I'm pretty sure. Nope, it was not this one. Oh, it might have even been on Reddit. But I found it on one kind of entry, and it was right here. Yeah, this nut.js right here. And what it is it's a testing automation kind of framework for JavaScript, and it allows you to control the keyboard, allows you to control the mouse and stuff like that. But I only needed to be able to control the keyboard, so I just went ahead and downloaded this, and boom, my problem is solved. That's how I enter keystrokes. And of course, whenever you don't know how to use these libraries, you always come here to the GitHub, and then you always want to open up their, or you always want to take a look at their README, which is all right here. Talks about all this, sample, installation, prerequisites, blah, 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 blah. Like, it tells you everything that you need to know generally, and then when you want to know how to use it, it just says examples. The demos are always great. So it literally says examples, contains a set of ready-to-use examples. So I'm just going to click on that. Trail mix, which is basically using this library, and then view code. And we can see our examples somewhere here. Oh yeah, right here. I want to automate keyboard input. Boom. I already wanted to do that. Node.js keyboard control. Great, great. Okay, there it is. This is showing me how to import it. This is showing me or actually this is showing me how to use the library. This is showing me that. So yeah, this honestly is pretty bad documentation. I know if you click on this, it will take you to their actual documentation page, which basically what a documentation page is it shows you everything that this library has to offer, and it shows you if I click how to do something. Let me find something that I want to use. Sure, let's just click on a random function, linear, and boom, const linear, it takes in an amount of steps, speed in pixels per second. Okay, I already know this movement type function just by, again, by experience, because that's really the biggest way to kind of figure out to navigate your way around the code world. And this library, again, has pretty bad documentation, but I already know this is moving your mouse linearly. So yeah, that's what this is for. And again, you can look through every function on here. And I didn't need to, but if you did want to use this for more complex things like moving your mouse as well, then you would look through this documentation and figure out how to do it. So yeah, that is solving our third and final problem, how to enter keystrokes. So now we know we want this nut-js package, and I'm going to go ahead and install that right now, just so we don't forget to start the next video. And then we want this IO hook program as well, and then and that's it. And then we want to use tries, try, to process our words, basically. So yeah, that was the 3 conceptual design pieces. In the next video, we are going to be going over basically starting to build out this program that reads in our keystrokes and then processes it and then spits out our final snippet, or it doesn't spit out anything if the snippet is invalid, of course. So if you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon for whenever I post new videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.